Hello there and welcome back to the channel. Oh, if you're new here and you like the content, please make sure you hit like and subscribe. Thanks a bunch. All right guys, so today we're going to be taking a look at another one of the guitars out of my collection. This guy right here, my lovely 1989 Peavey Tracer. Not a lot of information circulating around about Tracers. It's a pretty big model range, so I'm going to kind of give you the quick and dirty on Tracers in general, and then give you the specs on this particular guitar, all right? I will say if you're more interested in things like tones, please just follow the timestamps down here, go to the back of the video and find yourself the content you're after. I will say right now that for sure the neck pickup on this is not the stock pickup, so any sounds I do using this, I mean, take them with a grain of salt. This is definitely not what was in here stock, but we'll get into that a little bit more as we get going, all right? Okay, let's go. All right, so what exactly is a Peavey Tracer, right? I get this question a lot just when I do play this guitar. People see the Tracer right here, which is of course the model name, and go, I've never heard of a Tracer brand guitar before because they missed the little Peavey thing over here. Anyway, yeah, indeed, the Tracer is a Peavey. It's a made in USA guitar, and this was a pretty big, vast line that was produced by Peavey from 1988 all the way through until 1994, and there are just, again, tons of models in here in different scale lengths, so it gets a little bit messy trying to identify which ones are which and which years belong to which features. So we'll go over that really quickly. I'll try and demystify this a little bit, and then we'll get into the actual specs on this guitar right here. So first things first, these models, the Tracers, were pretty much a direct response to brands like Kramer, Charvel, BC Rich, you know, all the typical 80s gunslinger guitars that were out zipping around. You know, at that time period, shred, of course, was king, so shred guitars were in vogue. All right, so let's start at the very genesis of this entire model range with the original Peavey Tracer, which was released in 1988. So the original had a poplar body. Scale length was 25.5 inches, which is, you know, your typical Fender stuff, 22 frets, Graflon nut, Peavey power bend tremolo, whatever the heck that thing's called, one humbucker, maple neck, and 12-inch to 15-inch radius fingerboard. Now, this is the important piece here to understand, is that these particular guitars did not have locking trem. So these are just your basic Peavey originals. So this range was kind of reworked by the time we got to 1991, and that became, I guess you could look at this as the second original version, which is basically the same kind of setup, but there's a big difference here. Now you're looking at two extra Peavey branded single coil humbuckers, making this thing HSS, because the first one, of course, was just a single humbucker. And the scale length notably has changed. That's right. So instead of playing your regular kind of Fender style scale length, the 25.5 inches, we are now looking at more of a Gibson style scale length, which is 24.75 inches, and we get an extra couple frets, so we're up to 24 frets now. So that's the big difference between these non-locking trem Peaveys, okay? All right, good. Okay, now outside of the regular Peavey Tracers that we just talked about, there was the Peavey Tracer 2, which has all of the same features with a few key differences. Now we're looking at just an HS configuration. The scale length on these is back to Fender scale length, 25.5 inches. We're looking at a 15-inch radius, so much flatter fingerboard for flying around on, and again, 22 frets. Now this isn't the only Peavey Tracer 2 in the lineup. There's a Peavey Tracer 2 89. And I'm not 100% sure if this denotes the year. Maybe this was just the year they were introduced. This model that I'm holding actually is an 89, but we'll get to that again a little bit later on. So the Peavey Tracer 2 89s, again, had the exact same features as the Peavey Tracer 2, except the scale length was 24.75 inches. So the one thing to really keep an eye out for here is just the differences, again, in the scale lengths. If you're buying components to, you know, build one of these out of parts, just pay attention to the models because they do indeed denote what the scale length is, and certain parts will not fit. Anyway, I digress. All right, guys, so now we're gonna look at the fun stuff, the Peavey Tracers with the double locking trem systems. And there are some variations here as well. One thing to keep in mind, the big difference between these, of course, is the scale length. And the easy way to sort this out, again, is if it says, you know, Peavey Tracer, Deluxe, Custom, anything like that, then it is 25.5 inches in scale length. If it says Peavey Tracer, Deluxe, Custom, whatever have you, and then 89 as the model name, that means we're looking at 24.75 inches, okay? So a lot of these features will be repeated between the two. The only difference is really going to be scale length, all right? As long as you keep that in mind, this will make a lot more sense. Okay, so starting off the series, we have the Tracer Custom. So for this model, we're looking at HSS configuration, rosewood fingerboards, 25.5 inch scale length, 22 frets, and the big interesting piece here is they come equipped with Kahler spiders. And of course, the Kahler spider is very similar in construction to a Floyd Rose. You can even see it's got the patent licensing on the trem itself. Okay, so we know that if that's the Tracer Custom, that if there's a Tracer Custom 89, it is the exact same features, but we're looking at 24.75 inches scale length. And yeah, that's exactly what I'm holding here. This is a Tracer Custom 89. So we know that it's 24.75 inches scale length. I get 24 frets on it because of the scale length change. HSS configuration, I can split my coil here and just regular 5-way switch and a Kaler spider. Okay, so that's that model there, the Tracer Custom 89. Next, we've got the Deluxe series. So we've got the Tracer Deluxe, which is just humbucker single coil as the configuration, and they're kind of slanted, which is pretty neat. And this is kind of common for the time. You see, other guitars from Peavey with this kind of off-center slanted pickup configuration like the Vandenberg. The differences here, we're looking at a maple fingerboard. We are looking at 25.5 inch scale length, 22 frets, and again, that Kaler spider shows up. And you guessed it, guys, we know that if there is a Tracer Deluxe, there must be a Tracer Deluxe 89. And indeed there is, and it is identical with the following exceptions. Scale length, as we know, is now 24.75 inches. And the headstock is now a reverse headstock, which is pretty sweet looking. All right, now there is one other kind of oddball guitar in this series, which is the Tracer LT. Now, the difference with the LT is it's HSS. Okay, we've got rosewood fingerboard on the maple neck, 24.75 inches scale length with 24 frets. Big difference with this model, instead of the Kaler spider, we are now looking at a genuine official Floyd Rose. Okay, perfect, good. Anyway, hope that helps you make heads and tails of this series range. Oh, one thing I will mention for the Peavey Tracer, this is true of all the Peavey Tracers, all the information I could find on them, is the pickup that comes in the bridge position on all of them is a Schaller 2-in-1 pickup, at least that's what it's called. And it's just like this one here. I'm not sure what the 2-in-1 stands for. This one in particular is split. Maybe that's why they say 2-in-1. I'm not entirely sure. What I will say though, a lot of people think these are the Marzios because they kind of look like super distortions or something in there, but they're not. These are indeed Schallers, stock from the factory. They sound pretty good. Okay, so mine. Obviously, it is this lovely blue Peavey Tracer Custom 89, as we now know because we can identify different ones. This one is made in, indeed, 1989, which I can tell by the serial code on the back. This one is 041848086. Dating Peaveys is a bit of a challenge. It has to do with the start of your actual serial number here. It's kind of how you pick out the dates. The numbers themselves are more or less sequential, so there's certain sequences that we know start and end at certain years. That's how I know for certain that this one was made probably somewhere around the end of 1989. All right, so this one in particular, obviously, is this gorgeous metallic blue color, and actually it's in really good condition considering it's from 1989. Really, really, really lovely guitar. The body itself obviously is a Super Strat. Again, these guitars were targeting things like Kramers, Charvels at the time, and you totally get that vibe from one of these. Pretty much all of your cutaways are very much like, regular Strat style stuff, Super Strats, belly cuts. This is kind of interesting on the back here. It's kind of an off-center, well, you can see it, it's an angled cut here. It's still pretty bulky. I don't find it makes a massive difference over something like a Fender, but just kind of an interesting thing that Peavey was doing. And you've also got, if you can see in here, little cutaways in there for easier access up here to the 24th fret. And I gotta say, as far as getting up here and playing, not a problem to get fidgety and shreddy up in the higher register of this. Access is quite good. Now, during this period of time, all Peaveys were being made in the US, so this is indeed an American-made instrument. The quality on it's quite good. It's kind of surprising the pricing on these hasn't really jumped up yet, considering this is an American-made shred guitar, and honestly, they play really well and they sound good. Back to the body, again, we're looking at HSS configuration. The neck pickup here has been changed at some point. I have no idea what that is. It's a little rail. It sounds quite good. This would be a stock Peavey pickup, and this would be that Schaller 2-in-1 I was talking about earlier. Yeah, it sounds pretty good. It's quite a hot pickup. We're looking at one volume, one tone. You've got a 5-way switch, but of course we've got a coil split here, so you get an extra 2 tones out of that humbucker, and then mixed, of course, with the middle pickup. So ultimately, you're getting 7 different tones out of it. Now, this here is a Kaler Spider. These are actually pretty decent trems. I've got these on quite a few other guitars. Notoriously, they're kind of hard to get parts for, and a lot of the time you see back here, these strip out, probably from string changes and stuff like that. Honestly, I've had really good luck with the ones I do own. They stay in tune beautifully. The movement on them is not quite as agile as a Floyd Rose. They function very much the same way, but I find them a little bit stiffer to use. Still no problems. They work well. They sound good. They look interesting. I mean, they look pretty much just like an alternate Floyd Rose from a different reality, but overall pretty decent units. These are actually also made in the USA, so yeah, there's that. Oh, while we're talking about the body, I don't know if you can see here on the heel, there's a little itty bitty hole there. You see that? I think this is kind of akin to the fenders, you know, from the early 80s as well that had adjustments available this way through the neck. A nice little feature, and considering it was 1989 and these weren't really all that expensive at the time, a pretty good feature. Oh, and another thing, of course, and this is the same for every model in the Peavey Tracer range, all the bodies are made from poplar. Okay, the neck. As you can see, this is a rosewood fingerboard. We're looking at a maple neck, and we are at the 24.75 inch scale length. This is very much akin to something like a Gibson, so if you're more of like a Les Paul player or something like that, this is going to feel very comfortable and at home for you. The radius itself is incredibly flat. We are looking at 15 inches here, so yeah, it's pretty darn flat. Definitely a shred guitar, but you know, it is what it is. That was kind of the point. And of course, with the shortened scale length, we're looking at 24 frets, which is fine. Access is good. As far as the nut goes, we're looking at 43 millimeters up here. And this, of course, is the Kaler styled instead of a Floyd Rose. So a little bit different than something like a Floyd Rose R2. Similar concept and function for clamping down the strings, just a different way to do it. Okay, one thing I'm going to mention, guys, about this neck. Obviously, this is maple, and most sources will tell you that it's a single piece of maple, but I'm going to tell you right now it's not. I did see somewhere in some old literature that this was a double laminate. I'm not sure what that means, but I can see it. I don't know if you can see it. It's a little line right down the middle. You can see where two pieces of maple were joined. So yeah, it is multi-piece. Doesn't affect anything. Still plays beautifully. And yeah, honestly, I didn't even notice until I looked for it after reading that it was a single piece of maple, and then discovered that no, it's not. It's at least two. Anyway, all right, the headstock. So this is your kind of classic Peavey headstock design. I mean, this is pretty much the same as the sort of thing you'd find on a Vandenberg. You've got these kind of fins here, logo there, tracer there, nothing too weird. The tuners, these are just Peavey tuners. They're unbranded. They seem to work just fine. They don't bother me any. Again, though, we're looking at a locking trim, so all of your tuning is happening back here anyway. All right, guys, the headstock. Just something I'm going to point out here, which is kind of interesting. So, of course, your serial number is here on the back of the headstock. You can also see it, let me get that to show right there. You can see it says US patent number, and it shows the number, and then it says handcrafted in the USA, which, of course, is always a nice thing to find on any guitar. Now, I can't find much on these frets themselves, but they are definitely just your regular kind of nickel sort of thing for the time, and they look to me to be pretty large. I'm going to go ahead and call these jumbo. All right, let's do some tones. I'm going to do pretty much everything clean, just through my Blackstar HT50 on the clean channel, and I'm just going to kind of cycle through all of these, just playing the same thing over and over again so you can get an ear for how these pickups do sound. After that, yeah, I'll do what you guys are probably all wanting me to do. We'll do something kind of more produced and rocky, and you can hear how this sounds more in I guess, a band context or something. Anyway, let's get going. Tones. guys, so there you have it. That is my review on the lovely Peavey Tracer Custom 89. This is the model I have. Again, there are tons of different versions of these guitars out there in the wild. Yeah, these are probably one of the last good deals you can find. Again, this is a USA made guitar. The fit and finish and quality on this is pretty good. All of the parts on here are generally quality parts. I mean, the Kahlers can be a bit tricky to find parts for, but these are easily retrofitted for Floyd Roses if you want to do so. There are people that have done that. Pickups, again, we're looking at a Schaller bridge, and Peavey made in-house single coils. Again, the functionality of all this stuff is very, very good. And yeah, made in USA guitar. So again, probably one of the last good deals you can find. They sound good, they look good, they play well, and they're not that expensive right now. They are starting to creep up in price, but that's not entirely surprising considering these are vintage guitars made in USA, from the late 80s, early 90s. Anyway guys, hope you liked this review. Hope you found this somehow informative. If you did find this in any way helpful, please make sure you consider hitting that like and subscribe button and helping my channel grow a little bit. Anyway guys, that's all I've got for you today, so keep on shredding and we'll talk to you in the next video. Bye for now.